I want to talk to you about a topic, so let me try and illustrate it for you. One of the guys who works on staff, his name is Luke. Luke is passionate about boxing, like really passionate. You know, he's one of those people who pays pay-per-view, then he watches a boxing match that if he just waited another few hours, he could watch for free. I don't get that. So he watches that, and then he will come into the office and he'll want to talk about the boxing, and really just, and I've worked out what to do with him now. He doesn't need any help in the conversation. Have you got any friends like that? They talk about a topic, but they're okay if you leave them to their own conversation. All you have to do every now and again is nod and If you nod and in the right places, you can carry on that conversation for as long as you need to. Now, I can do that with Luke pretty well now. Wow. Oh, so interesting. In my head, I'm somewhere else in the world. And we're just kind of talking, and he'll go like this. But the other day, I was reading something, and I read the story of this boxer. His name was C.D. Blaylock. And in the 1930s, C.D. Blaylock, he was 6'6", and he came across a guy in a professional boxing bout. Is that the right word? Professional boxing bout, who was 5'9". Little guy, big guy. Classic David and Goliath. And Blaylock looks at this guy, and he says to himself, I'm going to make history tonight. I'm going to throw one punch. I'm going to hit him so hard, I'm going to knock him out with one punch. So that's his plan going into the ring. And as he goes into the ring, he throws what's called a haymaker. So he pulls that around, and he's going to swing it round as hard as he can and try and catch the guy on the side of the head. As he starts to swing, the little guy ducks inside the big guy's arm. His forehead connects with the big guy's bicep, which acts as a lever, changing the momentum of Blaylock's arm. Instead of swinging round, because it's connected here, it starts to swing inward. And the massive haymaker doesn't connect with his opponent in any way, but Blaylock strikes himself clean on the chin. He hits himself so hard on the chin that he puts himself out for the count on the canvas. The first boxer in history to ever knock himself out with one punch in the first round. Apparently, the room kind of stopped for a second. No one cheered. There was a gasp, and then laughter hit the auditorium as this giant of a man self-sabotages his boxing career. I don't know about you, he might be the only boxer in history to have ever done it, but he's not the only person in history. Many of us have self-sabotaged our lives. We've done something in our lives that has caused our lives to come off track or to go wrong somewhere. And we do it in all sorts of ways, in all sorts of things. Now, we all know we make mistakes. And sometimes they're mistakes you don't mean to make. Like DIY. That was a mistake I never meant to make, but I find myself doing it still. There are some things that we make mistakes in and we get caught up in. But there are other things we make mistakes and we've chosen to make that mistake. Let me illustrate with three things from my life. First is this. When I was around about 8 or 9, I was in a swimming gala. As I recall, which is a line I have to use because my mum's in the room, as I recall, it was an inter-Methodist church swimming gala. Methodist churches lined up against each other to find out who had the best swimmers in their congregation. That's exciting, isn't it? So I was around about 8 or 9 years of age, and I'm on the side, ready to dive in to play my part in this swimming gala. And nerves hit me really hard. And I was a fairly good swimmer, confident that I could have won it. Nerves hit me really hard. I just didn't dive in. The gun goes off, probably not. They were Methodist, so somebody probably shouted "go." And everyone dives in, or, you know, because we were young, climbs in and then pushes off the side. And I just stood there. I absolutely froze. And then, as they're all swimming down, I just stepped away from the pool and walked to the changing rooms. Absolutely self-sabotaged my race. My dad kind of comes to meet me and goes, "What are you doing?" I says, I just got nervous. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I self-sabotaged something else as well. Again, my mother's in. I probably didn't work as hard as I could have done for my A-levels. She might have known that. I probably didn't work as hard as I could have done for my A-levels. I didn't get the results that I probably should have done. And the reason was quite simple. I figured I'll just breeze through it. It'll be fine. I know what I need to get to the next stage of life, so I'll just breeze through. I'm saying that this week because my daughter got hers this week, which we're incredibly proud of, but I've never told her that story before. You should always work hard. So I kind of self-sabotage what I could have done and where I could have been. But there's another part of our lives. When we were struggling for finance, we were in a difficult season of our lives financially. And when it came to making decisions about money, instead of facing it, I couldn't face it. because the pressure was too high and too hard. So instead of looking at the challenges I was facing, I would do the classic ostrich thing, bury my head in the sand and just hope it would go away. And in doing so, took longer to turn something around than I should have done. We all have the capacity to self-sabotage our lives. When you sabotage something, it means you're going to interrupt it, you're going to disrupt it, or you're going to obstruct it. You're going to cause damage to something, and when we self-sabotage, we actually cause damage to us. We don't set out to do it. We may not have planned it, but there comes a moment where you think, I know what I want, what I should do, and I know what I could do, but I'm not going to do it. I've discovered this as well. I don't need any help to sin. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty capable of sinning all by myself. I don't need the devil to trip me up or even another person. I have the capacity to have wrong thoughts and make wrong decisions and get things wrong all by myself. What I love about the Bible is the Bible's not kind of sat there as a judgment over us, but actually as a commentary upon life with examples of real people suffering real challenges but pushing through. The Apostle Paul, who probably was one of the greatest Christians who's ever lived, this is how he talks about his wrestle with the fact that he self-sabotages his life. He starts like this: I do not understand what I do. Everybody else get that? Like you hear that line, you think, that resonates with me. There are times when I do not understand what I do, or why I say things, or why I act a certain way. He says this: what I want to do, I do not do. And what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree the law is good. And it is, as it is no longer I myself who do it, sin living in me. I know nothing good lives in me, that is my sinful nature. I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. But what I do is not the good I want to do, nor the evil I do not want to do. This I keep on doing. Paul doesn't put himself up there and says, hey, I'm perfect, be like me. Instead, he says, I'm having the same struggle and the same challenges. I keep sabotaging my own life by doing the things I don't want to do, but I keep doing them. I love that the Bible doesn't throw it out there and go, sort yourself out, but instead says, step in and understand there are ways to walk through and processes to walk through that can transform and change your life. In order to get to the point I want to get to today, I need to tell you a story from the Old Testament. The story from the Old Testament is to do with a character that's not a well-known character. It's not a Moses or a David or a Joshua, but rather it's a character called Shimei. Shimei turns up right the way through the Old Testament because it's a popular name. So lots of people got called this, and you could easily get lost thinking this guy has lived for a long time. The reality is the one person I want to talk about was alive at the time of King David and alive at the time of King Solomon. Shimei was part of the family of King Saul. And when the Lord took the kingdom from Saul and gave it to David, Shimei was really devastated. Because he was in the family of Saul, he lost his position of power and influence and ended up not being all that he could have been. And that thought held captive his heart and his mind. I'm not who I could have been, and I'm wrestling with what that looks like. Shimei got himself pretty worked up about this. And the day came where David is now an older man and his son Absalom is in rebellion against him. David flees from Jerusalem, and in the process of fleeing from Jerusalem, he runs into Shimei, who has decided, this is my chance to say what I've always wanted to say. Have you ever had a day like that? Where you think, this is it. I'm going to actually say what I've really wanted to say all my life. I have been building up to this moment. I'm going to tell them what I really think of them. I've never had that day, so I don't know what your problem is. 2 Samuel 16 goes like this. As David approached Barium, a man from the same clan as Saul's family came out there. His name was Shimei, and he cursed as he came out. He pelted David and all the king's officials with stones, though all the troops and the guard were on David's right and left. And as he cursed, Shimei said, get out, you man of blood, you scoundrel. Oh, what a great word. The Lord has repaid you for all the blood you shed in the household of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. The Lord has handed the kingdom over to your son Absalom. You have come to ruin because you are a man of blood. And then verse 13, so David and his men continued along the road while Shimei was going along the hillside opposite him, cursing as he went and throwing stones at him and showering him with dirt. I mean, he has built up to that. You don't wake up one morning and think you're going to do that, do you? I mean, he has warmed up to this for years, and he has absolutely unleashed it. His hope in life is that David dies, except he doesn't. David wins. And then he comes back down the same road to meet Shimei. Imagine David wandering along, flicking stones off the road. Yeah, that one came close. Oh, a little bit of dirt here. Oh, yeah, I remember exactly what he said when I was stood here. Now I think you're Shimei. This is not a good day. This is not a good day. He rushes to meet David, throws himself on the floor in front of him, and begs his forgiveness. And David, because he's just won a victory, is magnanimous in victory and says, hey, I'm going to forgive you. I swear to you on oath, I am not going to kill you. And then they get on with their lives. A few years later, David's an older man, much older man now. He knows he's passing away. And his son Solomon is in line for the throne. And he's preparing Solomon to be king. In his preparation of Solomon, he gives him some pieces of advice. It's a strange situation for David because he's really two people. He's David, a man, married guy, kids, family. But he's also David, a king. So sometimes he speaks as a person, but sometimes he speaks as a position. In our nation, our prime minister at times will talk as David Cameron, the man that he is. But other times he has to speak as the prime minister of a nation. And the two sometimes don't seem to reconcile, but in reality there's two different people speaking. Our queen can hold whatever private opinions she feels about it. But when she speaks publicly, there is a line that she has to toe in order to speak as it. David found himself in exactly the same position. As a man, he'd forgiven Shimei and had sworn on oath he wouldn't kill him. But as a king, he's trying to establish his son in his kingdom. And he recognizes that Shimei is a danger to the kingdom. And so in the process of this, he gives Solomon some advice. And in 1 Kings chapter 2, and verse 8, this is the advice he gives him. Remember, you have with you Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bahurim, who called down bitter curses on me the day I went to Mahanaim. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, I'll not put you to death by the sword. But now, do not consider him innocent. You are a wise man. You will know what to do to him. Bring his gray head down to the grave in blood. The king is speaking, and he's going, Solomon, for you to establish your kingdom, there are certain things you have to deal with in life. If you don't deal with them, they could destroy the kingdom that I am handing to you. Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, comes up with an elegant solution. It says this in verse 36 of the same chapter. Then the king sent for Shimei and said to him, build yourself a house in Jerusalem and live there, but do not go anywhere else. The day you leave and cross the Kidron Valley, you can be sure you will die. Your blood will be on your own head. So Solomon positions Shimei and sets up some limitations upon his life in order to stop him being an influence to undermine his kingdom. He keeps him in Jerusalem at that time so he can't damage the kingdom that Solomon is establishing. Shimei has got two options. Everyone has limitations in life. There are things that are put upon us and placed upon us in all sorts of different ways. And we really have two options. Either we see the limitation as there to stop us doing something, or we see the limitation as being there to protect us from doing something. When my kids were little and the oven was on, we would be saying to them, don't touch that. And not because there's something you're missing out on, but because I'm trying to protect you from what could damage you. Solomon has made this decision for Shimei, and he's got two choices. Do I see this as protection for me, or do I see this as a limitation for me? His choice was in his hands. The story goes on like this. 3 years later, verse 39, 2 of Shimei's slaves ran off to Achish, son of Maacah, king of Gath. Shimei was told, your slaves are in Gath. At this, he saddled his donkey and went to Achish at Gath in search of his slaves. So Shimei went away and brought the slaves back from Gath. He's lost something genuinely. Something that it was his property has gone, and he is now pursuing after it. He's got a genuine grievance, but in doing so, he has broken the promise that he made. I read this story and I was thinking about it. I'd read it a few months ago and just been pondering this key thought. This thought, it just bothered me. Just put the verse that we were just reading again for me. It bothered me as I read it. I kept rereading the verse and I came to this conclusion. Why did he own a donkey? It's the key question of the verse. Most of you didn't even notice the donkey, did you? Be honest. Who noticed the donkey and wasn't in the first service? Because he just saddled a donkey and got on. But why does he own a donkey? It perplexed me. To be honest, I was up nights with it. I started to look at it and go, the donkey's always significant in the Bible. Whenever a donkey gets mentioned, it's a major thing. Balaam's donkey, talking animal, big deal. If it's not a big deal to you, you live in a different world to me. There's a prophecy that the Messiah would come riding on a donkey, and then Jesus did. That Solomon, when he becomes king, he enters Jerusalem on a donkey. The donkey's key. And yet we all are looking at the slaves, thinking that's the key. The key question is, why did he own a donkey? Why would anyone own a donkey? He lives in Jerusalem. Now you need to know this. At that time, Jerusalem is about, it's 12 acres in size. Now you may think that's not very big, but the piece of land that we're on now, including the car parks either side, is 2.5 acres. So that means that Jerusalem itself is only about 4.5 times the size of church. And in Jerusalem, only around about 2,000 people live. It's not a big place. You don't need a donkey to get around Jerusalem. You can do it on foot. So the question begs, why has Shimei got a donkey? Why did he keep the donkey? Why is he looking after a donkey? And the answer can only be this. Because somewhere inside of him, he hoped for a day where he would ride the donkey as the king. He was holding on to something because he hoped that one day he would need it. I would think if Shimei had a garage and a loft, it was full of stuff. I would think he was an absolute hoarder, one of those people I just can't throw it away. We might need it one day. Anybody else like that? I might need this one day. I'm gonna put it in the loft. Then I'm gonna move house and it's gonna be in the same box in my new loft. Some of you have got boxes that have been through multiple houses. Here's the word of the Lord to you. Throw it away. Shimei has got this donkey. I'm perplexed by it. I'm thrown by it. I can't understand for a minute, why have you got a donkey? You see, I think there's 2 simple questions we've got to get from this morning. Question 1 is this. What are you holding on to that you need to let go of? Let me explain the donkey to you. I said the king would ride into Jerusalem on a donkey. That's how he was recognized as a king. If he rode in on a horse was a tool of war. But a king was taking over a city in peace. That's what he wanted. So he'd ride in on a donkey. He's keeping the donkey for one reason. One day he wants to get back what he feels that he's lost. But what are you holding on to that you've got to let go of? This donkey, it ain't cheap, a donkey. I don't know if you've been out checking on the price of donkeys recently. But they're not cheap things. And back then, that's a major expense. I mean, basically, we're talking about, this guy's got an Aston Martin. That's what we're talking about. That's the value we're talking here. And he's got it, and he's just keeping it for a maybe. But it's more than that. I mean, bear with me a minute while I rant about donkeys. It's more than that. He's gonna pen this donkey. He's gonna have it in something like kind of corral near his house. But it's more than that. He's gonna feed this donkey. Every day there's going to need to be food for the donkey. It's going to cost him money. He's going to need to groom the donkey, make sure it looks good, because one day he wants it to look great when he's riding it. So he's going to groom the donkey, make sure the donkey looks absolutely amazing. He's going to make sure of that. Not only that, he's going to have to exercise the donkey. The donkey's designed to be ridden, so he needs to take it out every now and again, take it for a little tour around the city. He's got to do that. He's got to exercise the donkey, but also he's got to prepare the donkey. He's got to know what its role is, what it's all about. And he's not going to do it himself, because if you want to be king, you don't look after donkeys. So he's got someone that he employs to do this. This is a massive expense that he is going through in order to own a donkey that he might have. The difficulty for Shimei is this. He hasn't realized that the donkey he thought would carry him to his destiny is actually the thing that will take him to his destruction. Here's my question to you this morning. What's your donkey? What is it in your life that you're looking after, paying the money for, grooming, feeding? Every now and again you give it a little bit of a treat, carrot, sugar stick, and you're preparing that you think will bring breakthrough to your life, but in reality it's going to slow you down. What are you holding on to? Shimei thought that riding the donkey was the way to get what he wanted. He didn't recognize it was the way to get destruction brought upon his life. What are you holding on to? Some of you, it's unforgiveness. That you've taken a hold of unforgiveness because somebody hurt you and somebody wounded you. And you were right. It was right to be hurt and it was right to be wounded. And you're holding on to it. You say, this is right. This is what I should have. But this is what you're doing. You're corralling it next to your house. And then you're starting to feed unforgiveness. I'm justified in feeling the way that I feel. What they did to me was wrong. So you start to feed it. But then you do more than just feed it. You start to groom unforgiveness. You bring some other people in and you talk about what happened. And you get their justification lined up with your justification. So you feel good about your unforgiveness. Someone's agreed with you. Someone said, yeah, you're right. You should, and you start to groom your unforgiveness. Then you take your unforgiveness out for a ride. And you show it to lots of different people. Let lots of different people see your wound. See that this person hurt you. And we show our unforgiveness to as many different people as we can so that we feel good. And then we prepare our unforgiveness for the day that you're going to place it in front of the person who hurt you and say, look what you did to me. Is unforgiveness the donkey that's in your life that you're holding, thinking it'll take you where you want to go, but actually it's hurting you more than it's helping you? For some it's regret. Regret. The what if. What if I've married her? What if I've married him? Some of you in marriages and there's another person in there, but your partner doesn't know. Because you keep looking back and wondering if you should have made that choice, but didn't. But you hold it internally. Think about them. Dream about them. They might not even be in your life anymore, but you're living with that regret. Some of you regret the actions of what you didn't do in school. Oh, I wish I worked harder in school. I kind of do. Because my mum's in the room. No, some of you are regretting silly things. I wish I dived in when the gun went off. Or the man clapped because they're Methodists. I wish I'd. And what happens is this. You're living in your past. Regret is the disease of the past. It eats you from behind and destroys your life so that you don't ever reach for a future. Because you live looking back at it and going, if I've made that decision now, and if I've made that decision now. And all the time you're looking back, you're not seeing the danger that's behind you, nor the opportunity that could be in front of you. You're living with regret, eating away. Wish I'd done this, wish I'd done that. If I'd taken my kids on these kind of holidays, then maybe they wouldn't be the way they are now. 2 weeks in the sun would have made that difference, right? We live with regrets that destroy all sorts of things. But here's what we do. We feed our regrets. We talk about them, don't we? Internally. Do you have those conversations? Working it through, processing out, talking about it. All the time, all you're doing is this. You are self-sabotaging your life. You're self-sabotaging your future. You're self-sabotaging your vision, because all you're doing is talking about your past, about what could have been and what should have been, how people let you down, how someone else did this. And all the time, the vision is being ripped away from you because you're living in the regret, the disease of the past. Maybe some of you are living in fear of failure. The fear of failure is the donkey of your life. That you won't risk anything because it could go wrong. So you try to live what you would call just a normal day every day. Normal day every day. Do you know what another word for normal is? Boring. I was work, normal. Boring. I was school, just normal day. Boring then. Some of you have such normal Christianity. Boring. Sometimes we give people just enough of Jesus to get bored, but not enough of Jesus to realize the adventure that he is. When we live with fear of failure, we live with the fear of something exciting happening. Now, here's confession. Pastor Jason and I, we have a few things in common. He looks like Michael Bublé. I don't. Amazingly, my friend Pastor Sarah turned to me and says, he looks like Michael Bublé. I went, this is such a good day. Neither of us like rides at theme parks. We hate them with a passion. With a passion. I mean, I have lobbied Alton Towers to get a better coffee machine. So that when I go, there's good coffee for me, then I can enjoy the park more. I don't mind the log flume. Because it's just got one quick down, and I'm all right with that. Anything else messes with my head, and I feel ill. I'm just ill. It's not my own matter. It's my stomach over the floor. That's what is wrong with it. I'm not playing that game. That's not boring. That's sensible. But some of you, fear of failure holds you back from anything. Changing jobs. Don't change jobs. Might not succeed at the next job. Know what I'm doing with this job. So you limit the lid of what you can earn in your life. Oh, I won't commit to that relationship, because if I commit to that relationship, that could all go wrong like it did last time. And the fear of failure has become the donkey that you feed, that you groom, that you look after, that you talk about. Some of your rejection is the donkey that follows you everywhere you go. Like an open wound. Just let people see it. And so strangely, isn't it, that when people see rejection, they reject it? But what we've done is we've fed it, and we've talked to it, and we've given it the odd little carrot and the sugar cube, and we said, it's okay. We'll still be together. And it's held us back. Some of you, it's jealousy or disappointment or a limiting relationship. But you know the donkey in your life that you thought would bring you the breakthrough, but is actually leading you to destruction. You thought, if I hold on to this, if I shape this, if I groom this, if I prepare this, one day I'll ride this to victory. But instead, all it's doing is setting you up for a fall. First question you've got to ask yourself on this man's life is, what are you holding on to that you should let go? The second question is this: what are you chasing, and are you prepared to pay the price for it? Shimei chased after 2 slaves. He went and got them back, and when he returns to the city, we pick up the story. Verse 41 of 1 Kings chapter 2. When Solomon was told Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and had returned, the king summoned him and said to him, did I not make you swear by the Lord and warn you? On the day you leave to go anywhere else, you can be sure you'll die. At that time you said to me, what you say is good. I will obey. And why then did you not keep your oath to the Lord and obey the command I gave you? Verse 46. Then the king gave the order to Benaiah, and he went out, struck Shimei down, and killed him. What are you chasing, and is it worth the price you'll pay? I think if he'd woken up that morning when he got the news about his 2 slaves, I think he would have sat back and gone, okay, I'm going to go and get those slaves, and that'd be good. They need to come back. They're mine. I deserve them. I should have them back. That's what I want in life. I'm going to go and get them, and it'll all be fine. If he'd known that when he got up in the morning, that would have been his last day on planet Earth, I think he might have seen a different value base on the slaves. Is my life worth giving up for the sake of getting them back? What are you chasing? Some people chase career, don't they? And sacrifice everything else on the altar of success in career. Putting in the extra hours, doing the more, going the above and beyond. And you tell yourself at first, I'm doing this for my family. And at first, that may be a truism. But as time goes on, your family would rather you were there. And family gets sacrificed on the altar of career. And people get pushed aside. And suddenly you find yourself with a job and nothing else. For some, chasing pleasure has become the value in your life. And the price is incredibly high. Some people in this room having an affair right now, chasing a pleasure that you think has got great worth to you, and not seeing the price that you're really about to pay. Not seeing the pain and the agony that will come from children and spouse. Not seeing the difficulty that will come because you chased after something selfishly. And then you'll sit back and say, where did it all go wrong? That was easy. It's called self-sabotage. You managed to knock yourself out doing what you thought would make you feel good. People chase all sorts of things in life. Chase approval of others. Having that someone be the one who tells us well done. That someone who can come along and just go, you did brilliant. And we pursue it. For some, we're just chasing money. Just if I had more money, then I'd be happier. For some, we're chasing happiness. Let me tell you something about happiness. Happiness you find where you are. It's not a place you go to or something you discover. It's what you find where you are. What are you chasing in life? 2 key questions. We're going to finish in a few minutes. What are you holding that you need to let go of? And what are you chasing? And are you prepared to pay the price for it? The title for my message this morning is one of two. Title number 1. We are all Shimei. All of us. Because we all have the propensity for self-sabotage. We all have the ability and the capacity to stuff our own lives up completely. We could all go out and make a mess this afternoon. Why? Because it's in our nature. Paul wrote about it in Romans 7. We read it at the start. What I want to do, I don't do because of sin living in me. It's in our nature because right at the start in the Garden of Eden, a man and a woman took a fruit and bit into it. And in that moment of biting in, they self-sabotaged their relationship with God. It's in our nature to do it. Option 1 is a title, we are all Shimei. Option 2, shoot the donkey. Shoot the donkey. The donkey in your life. The thing you've been feeding. The thing you've been grooming. The thing you've been stabling. The thing you've been preparing. Sharing with others. Showing off about. That thing. If you shoot the donkey, you'll be free for the real chase of life. Psalm 42. David writing, a man who kind of got this. He says this, as the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Where can I go and meet with God? if there's something to chase that's worth the price, it's a relationship with Jesus. If there's something to chase that's worth absolutely everything, it's a relationship with him. Jesus tells a parable. He says a man's digging in a field and he finds a treasure of incredible value. And instead of going telling someone, hey, look what I found, he buries it again. And then he goes to the owner of the field and selling everything he's got, he buys the field so that he can own the treasure. Knowing Jesus is exactly like that. You will find a treasure beyond your wildest imagination in a relationship with Jesus. But it'll cost you everything you've got. But what it gives you back is so much more.